Thursday's sacred, Victoria said, not looking up from her laptop. The blue glow illuminated her face in our darkened kitchen, casting shadows that made her look like a stranger. For work, for fitness, for everything that matters. I stood in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, watching my wife of 12 years dismiss me with the casual efficiency she reserved for opposing counsel. Victoria Blackwood, lead counsel at Blackwood and Thornton, the firm I'd built from nothing. The firm that bore my name first, though she'd conveniently forgotten that detail lately. Everything that matters, I repeated, tasting the bitterness in those words. Interesting choice of phrase. She finally glanced up, her green eyes sharp with irritation. Alexander, please. I have a presentation tomorrow. The Henderson merger won't prepare itself. The Henderson merger. Right. The case that required her undivided attention every Thursday evening. The same case that had been almost finished for 6 weeks running. The same case that somehow demanded she work late in the office building where my business partner David Thornton also happened to spend his Thursday evenings. I took a sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch between us. Our kitchen felt enormous suddenly, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that reflected our fractured conversation back at us. We'd designed this space together, back when we still designed things together. David called earlier, I said, watching her reaction carefully. Something about the Morrison contracts. Victoria's fingers paused over the keyboard for just a moment, just long enough for me to notice. He's your partner, not mine, she said, the words coming out too quickly, too rehearsed. Business relationship only. Your concern is misplaced. Business relationship only. The phrase hung in the air like smoke from a fire I couldn't yet see, but definitely smelled burning. I nodded slowly, as if accepting her explanation. As if 12 years of marriage hadn't taught me to recognize her tells. The way she touched her neck when she lied. The way her voice pitched slightly higher when she was covering something up. She was doing both now. Of course, I said. My mistake. She returned to her laptop, dismissing me again. I stood there for another moment, studying this woman I'd married, this woman who'd become a stranger in designer suits and carefully constructed alibis. Our home office sat directly below the kitchen, and I could hear the faint hum of the security system I'd installed last year. State-of-the-art cameras, motion sensors, the works. Victoria had complained about the expense at the time, called it paranoid. Now I wondered if she regretted not fighting harder against it. I'll be late again Thursday, she said without looking up. The usual time. The usual time. 7 p.m. to midnight every Thursday like clockwork. Sacred Thursday, as she'd started calling it. Sacred to whom? I was beginning to wonder. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug in the sink, the sound of running water filling the silence. Through the window, I could see our neighbor's house, warm light spilling from their windows. Normal people living normal lives, probably not wondering if their spouses were lying to them about Thursday night overtime. Alexander? Victoria's voice softened slightly, and for a moment I heard an echo of the woman I'd married. Everything okay? I turned to face her, this beautiful stranger with my last name and my business partner's phone number in her recent calls. Everything's fine, Victoria. Just thinking about partnerships. What about them? How they're supposed to work. Mutual respect, shared goals, trust. She studied my face for a long moment, and I wondered what she saw there. Did she see suspicion? Or just a tired husband making conversation about abstract concepts? Trust is earned, she said finally. Yes, I agreed. It is, and it can be lost. Something flickered across her expression, guilt, maybe, or fear. But it passed quickly, replaced by her lawyer's mask of professional composure. I should get back to this, she said, gesturing at her laptop. Of course, the Henderson merger. The Henderson merger. I left her there in the kitchen, bathed in blue light and carefully constructed lies. Our house felt different as I walked through it, like a crime scene waiting to be discovered. Every Thursday for 6 weeks, she'd claimed to be working late. Every Thursday, she'd come home with the same story about overtime and deadlines and the pressing needs of corporate clients. In my home office, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The security system's main interface loaded with a few keystrokes: cameras, motion sensors, access logs, all the data I'd need to either confirm my suspicions or put them to rest. The office building's security system was even more comprehensive: badge access logs, camera feeds, parking garage monitors. Everything digitally recorded and archived, everything time-stamped and searchable. I pulled up Victoria's badge access history for the past 6 weeks. Thursday nights showed a consistent pattern: badge in at 7:15 p.m., no corresponding badge out. Either she was sleeping in the office, or she'd found another way to leave the building. David's access logs showed the same pattern: badge in, no badge out. 2 people, same building, same time frame, same missing exit records. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Data didn't lie, but it didn't tell the whole story either. I needed more than badge access logs and suspicious timing. I needed proof. The security camera system offered multiple viewing options: live feeds, archived footage, motion-triggered alerts. I'd installed it primarily for the office building's protection, but the system covered every floor, including the executive level where both Victoria and David maintained private offices. My finger hovered over the keyboard. Once I started down this path, there would be no going back. Once I saw what Thursday nights really contained, everything would change. But sitting here in my office, surrounded by law books and partnership agreements and contracts that spelled out exactly what happened when trust got violated, I realized everything had already changed. I just hadn't been willing to see it yet. I clicked on the archived footage tab and selected the date range: 6 weeks of Thursday nights, starting at 7 p.m. The first video file loaded slowly, black and white security footage from the executive floor. Empty hallways, closed office doors, the occasional cleaning crew making their rounds. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. Then, at 7:43 p.m., Victoria appeared in the frame. She walked purposefully down the hallway, her heels clicking on the polished floor. She stopped at David's office door, knocked once, and entered without waiting for a response. The timestamp showed she remained inside for 4 hours and 17 minutes. I fast-forwarded through the footage, watching the empty hallway, waiting for her to emerge. At 11:47 p.m., David's office door opened. Victoria stepped out first, smoothing down her skirt, adjusting her blouse. David followed a moment later, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled. They stood in the hallway for a brief conversation, too far from the camera's microphone to hear the words, but their body language spoke clearly enough. Intimate touches, knowing smiles, the comfortable familiarity of people who'd done this before. Many times before. I sat back in my chair, the evidence playing out on my screen in grainy black and white certainty. Victoria and David, my wife and my business partner. Thursday nights in his office, while I sat at home wondering why she seemed so distant lately. The partnership agreement for Blackwood and Thornton included specific clauses about moral conduct and professional behavior. David had insisted on those clauses during our initial negotiations, claiming they would protect the firm's reputation. The irony wasn't lost on me now. Section 12.3. Moral Turpitude Clause. Any partner engaging in conduct that brings disrepute to the firm or violates the trust essential to the partnership relationship may be subject to forced buyout at predetermined valuation. I'd written those words myself, never imagining I'd need to use them against my own partner. The predetermined valuation was intentionally low, designed to discourage bad behavior by making it expensive. David would lose everything: his shares, his office, his position. All of it would revert to me at a fraction of market value. But first, I needed to be absolutely certain. 6 weeks of footage would provide that certainty. 6 weeks of documented evidence that my wife had made David hers every Thursday in our office building, probably in the same conference room where we'd signed our partnership agreement. I queued up the next Thursday's footage and settled in to watch my marriage dissolve in real time, one archived video file at a time. The truth was going to hurt. But the revenge was going to be spectacular. The coffee shop on 5th Street buzzed with morning conversation and the hiss of espresso machines. I'd chosen a corner table with a clear view of the entrance, my laptop open to what appeared to be client files, but was actually 6 weeks of compiled security footage. My sister Lila arrived precisely at 8, her ex-cop instincts making her scan the room before approaching my table. She'd retired from the force 3 years ago after taking a bullet in the shoulder, but she still moved like someone expecting trouble. "You look terrible," she said, sliding into the opposite chair. "When's the last time you slept?" "Thursday," I said, ironically. Lila ordered black coffee and studied my face with the intensity that had made her an excellent detective. "This is about Victoria, isn't it?" I turned my laptop screen toward her. The frozen image showed Victoria and David in his office doorway, her hand resting on his chest, in a gesture that was definitely not professional. "How long?" Lila asked. 6 weeks that I can prove. Probably longer. She scrolled through the footage I'd compiled, her expression growing darker with each frame. "Your business partner. Classy. David insisted on the moral turpitude clauses in our partnership agreement, said they'd protect the firm's reputation. And now they're going to protect your assets instead." Lila closed the laptop and leaned forward. "What do you need?" This was why I'd called her. Lila didn't waste time on sympathy or advice about working things out. She understood that some betrayals required consequences, and she had the skills to help deliver them. "Information," I said. "David's patterns, his habits, his weaknesses. I need to know everything about how he operates outside the office." "Consider it done. What about Victoria?" "I'm handling Victoria personally." Lila's smile was sharp as a blade. "Good. She earned whatever's coming." We spent the next hour planning the investigation. Lila would handle surveillance and background research, while I gathered additional evidence from the office systems. We'd need everything documented and legally obtained. No shortcuts that could compromise the eventual confrontation. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Board meeting next week. Henderson merger needs approval." The Henderson merger. Victoria's Thursday night alibi, and apparently David's as well. I wondered if there even was a Henderson merger, or if it was just a convenient fiction to explain their regular schedule. I typed back, "Absolutely. Let's discuss today." "Everything okay?" Lila asked, reading my expression. "David wants to schedule a board meeting. Perfect timing." "You're going to use the board meeting to expose them?" "I'm going to use the board meeting to destroy them." The partnership agreement required unanimous board approval for major decisions, but it only required a simple majority to invoke the moral turpitude clause. With 5 board members total, I needed 3 votes. David couldn't vote on his own disciplinary hearing, which meant I needed 2 allies among the remaining 3. Margaret Chen served as our corporate counsel and had never liked David's aggressive tactics. Robert Martinez represented our largest client and valued discretion above everything else. Jennifer Walsh managed our financial operations and had built her career on strict ethical standards. All 3 would be horrified by the security footage. All 3 would vote to protect the firm's reputation by removing David immediately. I spent the afternoon in my office, preparing the presentation that would end David's career and my marriage simultaneously. The evidence was overwhelming. Timestamps, badge access logs, security footage, even credit card records showing David's pattern of expensive dinners and hotel charges on Thursday nights. Victoria's involvement made everything more complicated legally, but it also made the betrayal more complete. She wasn't just cheating on our marriage, She was participating in the destruction of the business I'd built from nothing. At 5 p.m., David knocked on my office door. He entered with his usual confidence, expensive suit perfectly tailored, smile practiced and professional. Looking at him now, knowing what I knew, I wondered how I'd missed the signs for so long. "Alexander, about that board meeting. Tomorrow work for you?" "Tomorrow's perfect," I said. "Emergency session, all members required." Something flickered in David's expression. "Emergency? What's the situation?" "Partnership conduct review. Some concerns have come to my attention." He sat down across from my desk, and I noticed his hands weren't quite steady. "What kind of concerns?" "The kind that require board attention. Moral turpitude issues." David's face went pale. He knew exactly what those words meant because he'd helped write the relevant clauses. "Alexander, if this is about the Morrison contracts, it's not about the Morrison contracts." "Then what?" I leaned back in my chair, studying this man who'd been my partner for 8 years and my friend for longer than that. "It's about trust, David. It's about the foundation of our partnership and what happens when that foundation gets compromised." "I don't understand." "You will tomorrow. Board meeting at 9 a.m. Don't be late." After David left, I called the board members individually. Margaret was available and intrigued by the urgency. Robert cleared his calendar immediately. Emergency meetings usually meant significant problems or opportunities. Jennifer asked no questions but confirmed her attendance. The final call was to Douglas Whitmore, our external corporate attorney. If I was going to invoke the moral turpitude clause, I needed legal counsel present to ensure everything was handled properly. "This is highly unusual, Alexander," Douglas said. "Forced buyouts are serious business. So is partner misconduct. You have documentation? Comprehensive documentation. Then we'll proceed according to the partnership agreement. David will have representation available? That's his choice, but the evidence is conclusive." That evening, Victoria came home at her usual time, carrying takeout from our favorite restaurant, and wearing the expression of someone who'd had a perfectly ordinary day at the office. "How was your day?" she asked, setting the food on the kitchen counter. "Productive. Scheduled a board meeting for tomorrow." "Oh? What's the agenda?" I watched her face carefully as I answered. "Partnership review. Some conduct issues that need addressing." Victoria's hand paused while unpacking the takeout containers. "Conduct issues?" "Nothing that concerns you directly." She relaxed slightly, but I caught the moment of tension, the brief fear that she might be exposed. "Well, I hope you resolve whatever it is quickly. David's been stressed lately." "Has he?" "Just the usual work pressure. You know how he gets." I knew exactly how he got. I'd seen 6 weeks of security footage showing precisely how he got, every Thursday night in his office with my wife. "Victoria, about tomorrow night. Will you be working late again?" "Probably." "The Henderson merger." "Right. The Henderson merger." We ate dinner in relative silence, 2 people sharing a meal and nothing else. Victoria checked her phone repeatedly, probably texting with David about the mysterious board meeting and whether it posed any threat to their Thursday night arrangement. After dinner, I returned to my office and reviewed the presentation one final time. The evidence was organized chronologically, starting with suspicious patterns and building to the security footage that would leave no room for doubt or denial. Section 12.3 of the partnership agreement was clear. Moral turpitude resulting in potential harm to the firm's reputation constituted grounds for immediate termination and forced buyout. David's affair with a colleague's wife, especially when that colleague was his business partner, definitely qualified. The buyout valuation had been set at book value minus outstanding liabilities, roughly 30% of current market value. David would lose approximately $2 million in equity, plus his salary, plus his position as managing partner of the litigation department. Victoria would lose her husband, her marriage, and quite possibly her job, depending on how the board chose to handle her involvement. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair. Tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow would be the day I reclaimed my business, my dignity, and my future from the two people who'd thought they could take all three. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. Additional intel gathered. David's been bragging about his Thursday night meetings at Murphy's bar. Several witnesses. Want me to get statements? I typed back, "Not necessary. I have everything I need." The security footage would be enough. The timestamps, the badge access logs, the pattern of deception, all of it would paint a picture that no amount of explanation could erase. Thursday had been their sacred night. Tomorrow would be mine. Murphy's bar occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and dim lighting designed to encourage confidential conversations. I'd chosen it specifically because David was a regular, and regulars got comfortable. Comfortable people made mistakes. I arrived early and claimed a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. The bartender, a guy named Tommy who'd served drinks to half the city's legal community, nodded in recognition, but didn't approach. I'd spoken with him earlier, explaining that I might need to record a conversation for legal purposes. Tommy understood the implications. Lawyers recording other lawyers usually meant someone was about to have a very bad day. David walked in at exactly 7:30, his usual time according to Lila's surveillance. He scanned the room, spotted me, and approached with the cautious confidence of a man who knew he was walking into something but couldn't figure out what. "Alexander, this is unexpected. Sit down, David. We need to talk." He slid into the opposite seat, signaling Tommy for his usual scotch. "About tomorrow's board meeting?" "Among other things." Tommy delivered David's drink and retreated to a respectful distance. The bar's ambient noise would provide cover for our conversation, but my phone was already recording, positioned discreetly on the table between us. "You seem tense," David said, trying to regain his equilibrium. "Everything okay at home?" The question hit exactly the wrong note. Too casual, too knowing, like someone fishing for information about his lover's domestic situation. "Home's fine," I said. "Marriage is solid. Victoria and I understand each other completely." David's smile flickered. "That's good to hear. She's a remarkable woman." "She is, dedicated to her work, especially her Thursday night projects." "Thursday nights?" "Her overtime schedule, very consistent. Very thorough." David took a sip of scotch, and I watched his hand tremble slightly. "Victoria works hard." "She does. So do you. Thursday nights must be exhausting for both of you." "I don't follow." I leaned forward, dropping my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "David, we've been partners for 8 years, friends for longer than that. You can tell me about your Thursday club." "Thursday club?" "The special arrangement you've developed, the after-hours meetings, the private consultations." David's face went through several expressions: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally a desperate attempt at innocence. "Alexander, I think you've misunderstood something." "Have I?" "Thursday nights I'm usually at the office, catching up on paperwork. Nothing more exciting than that." "Alone?" "Usually, yes. No colleagues, no consultations, no partnerships." The word partnerships hit him like a physical blow. David set down his scotch and studied my face with the intensity of a man realizing his world was about to collapse. "What exactly are you asking me?" "I'm asking about trust, David. About the foundation of our business relationship and what happens when that foundation develops cracks." "Our business relationship is solid." "Is it?" "Because trust flows both ways in a partnership. Professional trust, personal trust, the understanding that we're working toward shared goals rather than individual gratification." David's lawyer instincts finally kicked in. "Alexander, if you have specific concerns about my professional conduct, perhaps we should discuss them in a formal setting with counsel present. Tomorrow's board meeting will be formal enough." What are you planning to present to the board? I smiled, letting him see just enough confidence to fuel his paranoia. Evidence, David, documentation, the kind of comprehensive review that leaves no questions unanswered? Evidence of what? Moral turpitude, conduct unbecoming a partner, behavior that violates the trust essential to our professional relationship. David's face went completely white. He knew the partnership agreement as well as I did, knew exactly what those phrases meant in legal terms. Alexander, whatever you think you know, I know everything, David. Every Thursday night for 6 weeks, every badge access, every security camera, every moment you thought was private. The words hung in the air between us like a verdict. David stared at me with the expression of a man watching his entire life unravel in real time. The security cameras, he whispered. The security cameras. You've been watching. The system archives everything automatically. I just had to review the footage. David buried his face in his hands. How long have you known? Long enough to document everything thoroughly. Long enough to prepare a comprehensive presentation for tomorrow's board meeting. What do you want? The question I'd been waiting for, the moment when David realized his position was hopeless and started looking for terms of surrender. I want you out of my business. I want you away from my wife. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. The forced buyout clause. At book value minus liabilities. Roughly 30% of current market value. David calculated quickly, his lawyer's mind automatically computing the financial damage. $2 million. Give or take. Alexander, please, we can work something out. A different arrangement. The arrangement is spelled out in Section 12.3 of our partnership agreement, the same section you insisted on including for the protection of the firm's reputation. David laughed bitterly. The irony isn't lost on me. I hoped it wouldn't be. We sat in silence for several minutes, David processing the destruction of his career while I savored the moment of complete victory. The recording on my phone captured everything, his admissions, his fear, his desperate attempts to negotiate a better outcome. What about Victoria? He asked finally. What about her? Will the board meeting include her involvement? I considered the question carefully. David was asking whether I planned to destroy Victoria's career along with his, whether the evidence would implicate her as an active participant rather than just an unfaithful spouse. The board will see everything, I said. They'll draw their own conclusions about appropriate consequences. David nodded slowly, understanding that Victoria's fate would depend on how the board members chose to interpret her role in the affair. Tomorrow at 9, I said, standing up. Don't be late. Alexander, wait. I paused, looking down at this man who'd been my partner and friend, who'd shared my dreams and ambitions, who'd thrown it all away for Thursday nights with my wife. This doesn't have to destroy everything, he said. We built something good together. The firm, the client relationships, the reputation we've established. Don't let this ruin all of that. I'm not ruining anything, David. I'm protecting it. From you. I left him sitting in the booth, staring into his scotch, like it might contain answers to questions he should have asked himself 6 weeks ago. The recording on my phone would serve as additional evidence of his guilt and his recognition of the consequences. Outside Murphy's bar, the evening air felt cleaner somehow. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation I'd been planning, the moment when everything hidden would be revealed and everyone responsible would face the consequences of their choices. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Working late again tonight. Henderson merger demands, don't wait up. I typed back, no problem, big day tomorrow, board meeting at 9. Oh, right, you mentioned that. Nothing serious, I hope? Just partnership business. Nothing that concerns you directly. The lie came easily, just as easily as hers had. But tomorrow, all the lies would end. Tomorrow, the truth would have its day in court, and justice would be served with the precision of a well-executed legal strategy. Thursday had been their sacred night, but Friday was going to be mine. The boardroom at Blackwood and Thornton occupied the entire northwest corner of the 15th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. I'd arrived early to set up the presentation equipment and arrange the seating to my advantage. Douglas Whitmore, our corporate attorney, sat to my right with copies of the partnership agreement and relevant legal documentation. The other board members, Margaret Chen, Robert Martinez, and Jennifer Walsh, occupied their usual seats around the polished conference table. David entered at exactly 9 a.m., accompanied by his attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Kellerman, who specialized in partnership disputes. They took seats across from me, David's face pale but composed, his lawyer's expression professionally neutral. Victoria was notably absent, which was expected since she wasn't a board member despite her position at the firm. "Thank you all for attending on short notice," I began, standing at the head of the table. "We're here to address a serious matter involving partner conduct and the potential invocation of Section 12.3 of our partnership agreement." Margaret Chen leaned forward. "The moral turpitude clause? Alexander, that's an extremely serious allegation." "Yes, it is, which is why I've prepared comprehensive documentation to support the board's review." I activated the presentation system, and the first slide appeared on the wall-mounted screen. Partnership Conduct Review, Confidential Board Session. Over the past 6 weeks, I've discovered evidence of conduct that violates the trust essential to our partnership and potentially damages the firm's reputation. The evidence is extensive and conclusive. David's attorney spoke up. "Mr. Blackwood, my client should have the opportunity to respond to any allegations before—" "He'll have that opportunity," I interrupted, "after the board reviews the evidence." The next slide showed badge access logs from the office building's security system. These records document a pattern of after-hours access by both David Thornton and Victoria Blackwood every Thursday evening for the past 6 weeks. Jennifer Walsh studied the timestamps. "That's not unusual. Many attorneys work late." "You're correct. Late work isn't unusual, but the specific pattern is significant when combined with other evidence." I clicked to the next slide, security camera footage from the executive floor hallway. The timestamp showed 7:43 p.m. on the most recent Thursday. Victoria appeared in the frame, walked to David's office, and entered without knocking. This footage shows Victoria Blackwood entering David Thornton's office at 7:43 p.m. last Thursday. She remained inside for 4 hours and 17 minutes. The room fell silent. Robert Martinez cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Alexander, marital issues are unfortunate, but they don't necessarily constitute grounds for—" "This isn't just a marital issue, Robert. Watch the exit footage." I advanced to the next clip. Victoria and David leaving his office at 11:47 p.m. Their body language was unmistakably intimate, touching, kissing, the comfortable familiarity of an established relationship. Margaret Chen's expression hardened. "This is highly inappropriate, but there's more." The presentation continued with additional footage from previous weeks, credit card records showing David's pattern of expensive dinners and hotel charges on Thursday nights, and phone records documenting extensive communication between David and Victoria outside normal business hours. "The pattern is consistent and ongoing," I said. "This isn't an isolated incident or a momentary lapse in judgment. This represents a systematic violation of professional boundaries and personal trust." David's attorney tried again. "Mr. Blackwood, while this situation is regrettable, adultery isn't automatically grounds for invoking the moral turpitude clause. It is when it occurs in the firm's offices, using firm resources, and involves deception of a business partner," Douglas Whitmore interjected. "The partnership agreement is clear about conduct that brings disrepute to the firm." I clicked to the final slide. Section 12.3 of the partnership agreement, highlighted in red. Any partner engaging in conduct that brings disrepute to the firm or violates the trust essential to the partnership, relationship may be subject to forced buyout at predetermined valuation. The board members read the clause in silence. David stared at the table, his career dissolving in real time. The predetermined valuation is book value minus outstanding liabilities, I continued. Current calculation puts that at approximately $2 million below market value. Patricia Kellerman finally found her voice. This is a vindictive overreaction to a personal situation. My client's professional performance has been exemplary. His professional performance included using firm facilities for personal gratification and lying to his business partner for 6 weeks, I replied. That's not exemplary. That's grounds for immediate termination. Margaret Chen spoke first. The evidence is comprehensive and deeply troubling from both professional and ethical standpoints. Robert Martinez nodded reluctantly. The use of firm facilities for personal relationships creates liability issues, insurance implications, potential harassment claims from other employees. Jennifer Walsh was more direct. This is exactly the kind of conduct the moral turpitude clause was designed to address. We can't ignore it. David finally looked up. I'd like to address the board. I gestured for him to proceed, confident that nothing he could say would change the outcome. I don't deny the personal relationship, David said, but I've never let it affect my professional responsibilities, my client work, my case outcomes, my contributions to the firm. All of that remains at the highest level. You've been lying to your business partner for 6 weeks, Margaret replied. How is that maintaining professional standards? The personal situation was complicated. The personal situation was simple, I interrupted. You chose to betray our partnership for your own gratification. You used firm resources to conduct an affair with your partner's wife. You violated every principle of trust and professional conduct we've built this firm on. Patricia Kellerman made one last attempt. The board should consider less drastic remedies, counseling, temporary suspension, modified partnership terms. The partnership agreement doesn't provide for those alternatives, Douglas said. Section 12.3 is clear. Moral turpitude results in forced buyout or voluntary resignation. The vote was inevitable. Margaret Chen, Robert Martinez, and Jennifer Walsh all voted to invoke the moral turpitude clause. David abstained, as required by the partnership agreement when facing disciplinary action. Motion carries, I announced. David Thornton's partnership is terminated effective immediately. Buyout procedures will commence according to the predetermined valuation schedule. Security was waiting outside the boardroom to escort David from the building. He gathered his personal items under supervision while his computer access was revoked and his office sealed pending inventory of firm property. Patricia Kellerman handed me a business card. We'll be reviewing the legality of this action. The buyout terms may be subject to challenge. The buyout terms were negotiated and agreed upon by your client, Douglas replied. Good luck challenging his own signature. After David and his attorney left, the remaining board members sat in uncomfortable silence. What about Victoria? Jennifer asked. That's a separate personnel matter, I said. She's not a partner, so her employment status will be handled through normal HR procedures. Will you be filing for divorce? That's a personal matter that won't affect firm operations. Margaret Chen gathered her papers. Alexander, I'm sorry this happened. David was a good attorney, but this kind of conduct is unacceptable. The firm will survive, I said. We'll redistribute his caseload and move forward. After everyone left, I stood alone in the boardroom, looking out at the city skyline. David's corner office was visible from here, already being cleared out by security. By Monday, it would house a new attorney, someone who understood the value of professional integrity. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Heard about the board meeting? Everything okay? I typed back, everything's fine. David won't be a problem anymore. What do you mean? He's no longer with the firm. Partnership terminated. The phone rang immediately. Victoria's voice was strained, barely controlled. "Alexander, what happened? David won't answer his phone." David violated the moral turpitude clause. The board voted for immediate termination. "What violation? What evidence?" "Comprehensive evidence. Security footage, access logs, documentation of his Thursday night activities." The silence stretched long enough for Victoria to process the implications. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "You know. I know everything." "Alexander, please, we need to talk." "Yes, we do, but not over the phone. Come home, Victoria. It's time we had an honest conversation about partnerships." The board meeting was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. Victoria's car pulled into our driveway at 2:47 p.m., the engine cutting off with a finality that seemed to echo through our neighborhood. I watched from the kitchen window as she sat motionless behind the wheel, probably gathering courage for the conversation she knew was coming. I'd spent the afternoon preparing for this moment, not with evidence or presentations this time, but with the emotional armor necessary to face the woman who'd shared my bed while sharing herself with my business partner. She entered through the front door using her key, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor with the same rhythm I'd heard in the security footage. Everything about her seemed different now. The way she moved, the way she avoided eye contact, the careful distance she maintained as she approached the kitchen. "Alexander." Her voice was steady, but I caught the tremor underneath. "Victoria, have a seat." She remained standing, her purse clutched like a shield. "Is it true? About David?" "Which part? The forced buyout? The security footage? The 6 weeks of Thursday night meetings in his office?" Each question hit her like a physical blow. Victoria's composure cracked slightly, revealing the fear beneath her lawyer's mask. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to document everything thoroughly. Long enough to present comprehensive evidence to the board. Long enough to watch my business partner lose $2 million in equity." Victoria finally sat down, her legs apparently no longer willing to support her. "The security cameras. The security cameras you complained about when I installed them. The ones you called paranoid and unnecessary. Turns out they were essential." "Alexander, please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been conducting an affair with my business partner for 6 weeks? That you've been lying to me every Thursday night? That you've been using our office building as your personal meeting place?" "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I have 4 hours and 17 minutes of footage from last Thursday alone. Should I be more specific about what I saw?" Victoria's face went pale. "You watched?" "I reviewed evidence, the same way I'd review evidence for any case involving betrayal and breach of trust." She buried her face in her hands, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married instead of the stranger she'd become. But the moment passed quickly, replaced by the reality of what she'd chosen to do. "Why Victoria? Why David? Why Thursday nights in his office instead of just asking for a divorce if you were unhappy?" "It wasn't planned," she said quietly. "It just happened." Nothing just happens for 6 weeks. Nothing just happens every Thursday at the same time in the same place. This was a choice you made repeatedly. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand. Explain how my wife decided to make my business partner hers every Thursday night. Explain how you justified lying to me while planning your weekly meetings with him." Victoria looked up, tears streaming down her face. "We fell in love, Alexander. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Love. I tasted the word like poison. You fell in love in his office, on his desk, during business hours. Don't be crude. Don't be naive. You think love excuses betrayal? You think emotion justifies destroying our marriage and my business partnership? David's career is ruined because of this. David's career is ruined because of David, because he chose to violate every principle of professional conduct we built our firm on." Victoria wiped her eyes, her lawyer instincts finally engaging. "What happens now?" Now you face the consequences of your choices. Which are? I pulled out a manila folder I'd prepared that afternoon. Divorce papers, no fault filing, but the security footage will be entered as evidence for asset division purposes. Victoria opened the folder with shaking hands. You're taking everything. I'm protecting what I built. The house is in my name. The firm is mine now that David's partnership has been terminated. The investment accounts are mostly funded by my earnings. This is vindictive. This is justice. You chose to destroy our marriage for Thursday night meetings with my business partner. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. What about my job? The question I'd been waiting for. Victoria's employment at the firm created complications. She was a skilled attorney, but she was also a living reminder of the affair that had destroyed the partnership. That depends on the board's decision. They're meeting Monday to discuss personnel matters. You're going to have me fired. I'm going to let the board make an informed decision about whether your continued employment serves the firm's best interests. Victoria stood up, pacing to the window where she'd stood so many mornings, drinking coffee and planning her day. Now she was planning her exit from the life we'd built together. Alexander, please. We can work something out. Counseling, separation, some kind of arrangement that doesn't destroy everything. Everything was already destroyed, Victoria. I just documented the wreckage. I'll fight the divorce, contest the asset division. With what evidence? Your Thursday night security footage? Your pattern of deception? Your affair with my business partner? She turned to face me, desperation replacing calculation. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Mistakes are accidental. What you did was intentional, repeated, and calculated. You planned every Thursday night meeting. You lied about every overtime excuse. You participated in the systematic betrayal of our marriage and my business relationship. David said you'd become distant, that our marriage was already over. David said what he needed to say to justify taking what wasn't his, just like you're saying what you need to say to justify giving it to him. Victoria sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her. What do you want from me? I want you out of my house by Sunday. I want you to sign the divorce papers without contest. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You made your choice when you chose David over our marriage. Now you get to live with that choice. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at the screen. Alexander, we need to talk. This isn't over. David. I showed Victoria the message. Apparently your boyfriend thinks he can negotiate better terms. He's not my boyfriend. What is he then? Your Thursday night business partner? Victoria flinched at the sarcasm, but didn't respond. Tell David that our business relationship is permanently dissolved, I said. Tell him that any further communication should go through his attorney. Tell him that Thursday nights are no longer available for his personal meetings. Alexander. Tell him that partnerships require trust, and trust once broken can never be fully repaired. Victoria gathered her purse and the divorce papers, moving like someone in shock. At the kitchen doorway, she paused. I did love you once. Once wasn't enough. After she left, I stood in our kitchen, my kitchen now, surrounded by the debris of a 12-year marriage. The granite countertops reflected the afternoon light, clean and cold and empty. My phone rang. Lila's name appeared on the screen. How did it go? She asked. David's out. Victoria's moving out by Sunday. The divorce papers are filed. And how are you holding up? I'm fine. Better than fine. I'm free. Good. You deserve better than what they gave you. I got exactly what I deserved. A chance to rebuild without people who don't understand the meaning of partnership. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the day's events. David's forced buyout would be finalized within 30 days. Victoria's departure would eliminate the daily reminder of betrayal. The firm would continue operating under my sole control, guided by principles of integrity and professional conduct. Thursday night arrived with unusual quiet. No lies about overtime. No excuses about client meetings. No sacred schedule that excluded me from my own wife's priorities. I opened a bottle of wine, a vintage Victoria and I had been saving for a special occasion, and raised a glass to the empty house. To partnerships, I said aloud, and to their proper dissolution. The wine tasted like victory, clean and sharp and completely satisfying. Thursday belonged to me now. Monday morning arrived with the crisp efficiency of a well-executed legal strategy. I entered the Blackwood and Thornton offices, now simply Blackwood and Associates, with the satisfaction of a man who'd successfully defended everything that mattered to him. The nameplate outside David's former office had been removed over the weekend. His client files were being redistributed among the remaining attorneys, his cases transferred according to client preferences and ethical requirements. The physical evidence of his partnership had been erased with the same thoroughness he'd used to document his affair with my wife. Margaret Chen was waiting in my office with coffee and a stack of personnel files. The board met early this morning to discuss Victoria's employment status. And? Unanimous decision. Her position is terminated effective immediately. I wasn't surprised, but I was relieved. Victoria's continued presence would have created ongoing complications, client conflicts, workplace tension, and the constant reminder of betrayal that would have poisoned the firm's culture. Severance package? Standard 2 weeks, plus accrued vacation time. Her office is being cleared as we speak. Through my window, I could see security personnel boxing up Victoria's personal items. She wasn't present for the process, which was probably wise. Confronting the consequences of her choices in front of her former colleagues would have been unnecessarily humiliating. What about client reactions to David's departure? Margaret consulted her notes. Mixed, but manageable. Most clients are staying with the firm. A few are following David to whatever firm eventually hires him. Any firm that hires him will get exactly what they deserve. The legal community is small, Alexander. Word gets around about partnership dissolutions, especially dramatic ones. Good. Let it serve as a warning about the consequences of violating professional trust. My phone buzzed with a text from Douglas Whitmore. Buyout paperwork finalized. David's shares transferred. You now own 100% of firm equity. The transformation was complete. Blackwood and Thornton had become Blackwood and Associates, with me as sole owner and managing partner. 8 years of shared dreams and collaborative effort had been reduced to a cautionary tale about the importance of choosing partners wisely. Lila called during lunch. How's the first day of your new life? Productive. Victoria's employment was terminated this morning. David's buyout is finalized. I own everything now. Congratulations. You've successfully defended your territory. I've successfully removed threats to my territory. There's a difference. Speaking of threats, David's been making noise around town about challenging the buyout terms. Let him make noise. The partnership agreement is ironclad, and he signed it willingly. His attorney already reviewed the terms and found no grounds for challenge. What about Victoria? Any word from her? Radio silence since Friday. She's probably staying with David, planning their next move. Which is? Irrelevant. They're no longer my problem. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Patricia Kellerman, David's attorney, appeared in my office with the expression of someone delivering bad news to a client who wouldn't want to hear it. Ms. Kellerman, I assume you're here about David's buyout terms? Actually, no. I'm here about something else entirely. She sat down across from my desk and opened her briefcase. David wants to make a public statement about the circumstances of his departure. He's free to make any statement he wants, as long as it doesn't violate the non-disclosure provisions of his severance agreement. That's the problem. He's claiming the non-disclosure provisions are unenforceable because the underlying buyout was obtained through coercion. I leaned back in my chair, genuinely amused. Coercion? I presented evidence of his misconduct to the board. They voted according to the partnership agreement he helped write. Where's the coercion? He claims you used private information obtained through surveillance to force his resignation. I used security footage from cameras installed in my own building to document violations of professional conduct. That's not surveillance, that's evidence gathering. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. David feels the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her briefcase as she spoke, the smallest tell that even she didn't fully believe the words she was delivering. She was doing her job, nothing more, acting as an intermediary, carrying water for a man who had already burned every bridge behind him. David feels wrong. The partnership agreement is explicit about moral turpitude consequences. He agreed to those terms when he signed the contract. I didn't raise my voice or lean forward. I didn't need to. This wasn't an emotional argument. It was contractual gravity doing what it always does. Agreements once signed don't care about feelings. They just wait. He's prepared to go public with his version of events. Paint this as a vindictive response to a personal situation rather than a legitimate business decision. I let the threat hang there for a second, just long enough to show it the respect it deserved, which was none. And what would his version of events include? That he conducted a 6-week affair with his partner's wife using firm facilities? That he lied repeatedly about his Thursday night activities? That he violated every principle of professional conduct we established? Each sentence landed cleanly, not as an accusation, but as a recital of facts already documented, time-stamped, and archived. This wasn't rhetoric. It was evidence. He'd focus on your alleged overreaction. There was no overreaction. There was appropriate response to documented misconduct. If David wants to make that case publicly, he's welcome to try. I could already see how that story would end. Journalists asking uncomfortable questions, former clients reconsidering loyalties, opposing counsel quietly sharpening knives. Public narratives have a way of slipping out of the storyteller's control. Patricia closed her briefcase, recognizing defeat. He won't pursue the public statement option. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, as if relieved that this particular disaster had reached its final form. Smart choice. David's already lost his partnership, his reputation, and $2 million in equity. He doesn't need to add public humiliation to that list. After she left, I sat alone in my office, looking out at the city skyline. Glass towers caught the afternoon light, monuments to ambition, discipline, and the quiet understanding that success is fragile when built on compromised character. David's threats were empty bluster, the desperate attempts of a man who'd lost everything, trying to salvage some dignity from the wreckage of his own choices. My phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen for the first time since Friday. Hello, Victoria. There was a pause, the kind where someone is deciding whether to fight or beg. Alexander, I heard about my job. Former job. Your employment was terminated this morning. This is vindictive. You're punishing me professionally for personal issues. I'm not punishing you at all. The board made an independent decision about your employment status based on your conduct. My conduct was personal, not professional. Your conduct involved using firm facilities for personal relationships with a business partner. That's absolutely a professional issue. I need that job, Alexander. I have bills, obligations. You should have considered those obligations before you chose to conduct an affair with David. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting would have been. Please, I'm asking for basic human decency. I gave you basic human decency for 12 years of marriage. You chose to trade that for Thursday night meetings with my business partner. Victoria's voice broke slightly. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust, Victoria. Sorry doesn't undo 6 weeks of systematic deception. Sorry doesn't restore the partnership you helped destroy. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want nothing from you because you have nothing I need anymore. The conversation ended with her hanging up, probably in tears, probably turning to David for comfort. They'd created their own private partnership through betrayal and deception. Now they could face the consequences together, without me cushioning the fall. Thursday evening arrived with perfect quiet. I worked late at the office, reviewing cases and planning the firm's future direction. The building felt different without David's presence, cleaner somehow, as if a low-grade infection had finally been removed. Decisions were clearer. The air felt lighter. At 9 p.m., I locked my office and walked through the empty hallways. The executive floor was silent, David's former office dark and vacant. The security cameras continued their silent vigil, but there were no more Thursday night meetings to document, no more shadows to track. In the parking garage, I found David waiting by my car. He looked terrible, unshaven, disheveled, wearing the same suit he'd worn to the board meeting 4 days earlier, now wrinkled and stale like a costume he couldn't take off. "Alexander, we need to talk." "No, we don't. Any communication should go through your attorney. This isn't about the buyout. This is about Victoria." I stopped walking and faced him directly. "What about Victoria?" "She's falling apart. Lost her job, facing divorce, dealing with the social consequences of everything that's happened. She's facing the consequences of her choices, just like you are. She doesn't deserve this level of destruction. She deserves exactly what she earned through 6 weeks of systematic betrayal." David stepped closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. "You've destroyed both our lives over a personal situation. I've protected my business and my assets from people who demonstrated they couldn't be trusted. Personal situation or not, actions have consequences. Victoria loves me. Victoria loved the excitement of sneaking around with my business partner. Now that the sneaking is over, we'll see how much love survives the reality. You're a vindictive bastard. I'm a man who refuses to be cheated by his wife and his business partner. If that makes me vindictive, I'm comfortable with the label." David's hands clenched into fists, and for a moment I thought he might try something physical. But he was a lawyer, not a fighter, and he recognized that assault charges would only make his situation worse. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is. Your partnership is terminated. Your relationship with Victoria is no longer my concern. Your future is whatever you can build from the wreckage of your own choices." I got in my car and drove away, leaving David standing alone in the parking garage where he'd probably met Victoria for some of their Thursday night encounters. At home, I opened another bottle of the wine Victoria and I had been saving for special occasions. The house felt larger without her presence, but not empty. Free, maybe. Clean. I raised a glass to the empty kitchen. "To partnerships," I said aloud, "and to their proper dissolution when trust gets violated." The wine tasted like victory, complete and permanent and absolutely satisfying. Thursday belonged to me now. Every Thursday, forever. The partnership was dissolved. Permanently.